I've been putting bad guys away for 44 years. I've been part of investigating over 1,000 deaths. I've been a part of putting more than 400 murders in prison, and I'm still at it. I'm Tim Corbett. These are my cases. This isn't your typical criminal profile podcast. This is Killer Catchers. Hi, Tim Corbett here, Corbett Investigations. With me tonight is Brian Cook to my left, and to his left is Kenny Cornelis. Kenny just recently retired within the last month, and Cookie's still on the police department. He isn't smart enough to leave yet, or maybe doesn't have enough time. I don't know which. But anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about Joann Newgent. Joann was killed on August 25th, 2016. She lived over at 1308 East 12th Street in Mishawaka, Indiana. The person that killed her was I almost said human, was a guy named Donald Wilson. Donald Wilson right now is spending 71 years in incarceration. Once again, we want to wish him the best and hope things are going well for him. I know when I say these things, some people cringe, but I think once you hear the story about how he bludgeoned this elderly lady to death with her own coffee table, you're going to feel much like I do. If you want to feel sorry for him, you give him a hug. We're not going to. This whole situation was completely unavoidable. Wilson had done time in the past for his first kill. He killed somebody in downtown South Bend, shot him, did a little bit of time. Of course, he was reformed and he was doing everything right, and he came back out and he was going to be a good model citizen. All the usual lies that you hear, and that didn't work out too well. So we're going to go back to August 25th, 2016. This happened at around 6 p.m. And Cookie, why don't you kind of walk us through how this thing went out?
Elderly lady stays in the apartments, the little red apartments there at Burkett and 12th Street. I think they probably have 30 tenants in all those buildings. Miss Joann Newgent, she was kept to herself. Everybody liked her. She was kind of like the mom of the apartment complex. And we get a call that Mishawaka police are checking on her. She was on the phone with her neighbor. Now her neighbor is disabled, so he cannot get out of his apartment. But when she was talking to him on the phone, she said something to the effect of, "Oh my God," or oh God, and her phone dropped. Well, then he tried to call her back, no answer, and he couldn't get out of his house because he was housebound. Mishawaka police gets there, they make entry, and that's where they find her in the living room, beat, bludgeoned.
As I recall, severe head injuries. She was able to kind of moan, and she was having real labored breathing. They immediately called EMS, and they came out, and it was they picked her up and took off, and within about a day or so, she was dead.
Yeah, beat both of her eyes shut, bruising all over her face and head, and
you remember how big she was?
I think she was a tiny little thing, very frail.
Elderly, and of course, the brute that did this, what was he like?
He was a husky boy. He wasn't that tall. I think he's 5'9" or 5'10". He's probably 215 pounds. Did factory work, so he was a good stocky fella. Very into prepping and fitness, so he rode his bike everywhere, and he was in good shape.
Okay. Kenny, you got, it was a pretty extensive scene, so you were called out later on. You were actually on your day off, probably home studying or something. The effects of alcohol. But anyway, what'd you do when you got there?
Okay, I first was notified by Sergeant Cook here, Brian, that one of our on-scene officers, one of their team members, Jim Andrews, had hurt himself while trying to gather evidence out of a large trash dumpster, steel dumpster. There were certain items of evidence in there that he was trying to recover and hurt himself in the process. They called me. I came out, and really there's 3 scenes total within that whole complex. And the first scene actually was Joann Nugent's apartment 1A. The second scene was actually the suspect, Donald Wilson's apartment, which was 2A. These two apartments were somewhere around 30 feet from each other, from door to door. And then the third scene was the actual dumpster itself that had evidence in it. So I arrived at 23:02 hours, and Detective Slater and I were trying to figure out where he was at. He had numbers laid out, evidence markers to recover, which was pieces of a coffee table that was outside the dumpster with more coffee table parts, legs, etc., was inside this pretty large dumpster. So at which time I picked up, started documenting and what Andrews was doing, and then Kyle took off and he was the overall documentation of the scene. So I followed up with video camera footage, and then it started to rain. So at which point we had items of evidence out of the dumpster on the ground that had red staining on it, blood, which we had to recover real quickly. So in and out, it started to come down pretty good. So as fast as we could, we recovered those items of evidence and secured them in the truck. And then we started to do more overall documentation. We went over to victim Nugent's apartment 1A, and then I followed up behind Kyle and we started documenting that scene. After that, we figured out that we had a search warrant for Donald Wilson's apartment 2A, and then when we went in there and did what's called a primary walkthrough of that apartment. So basically I was getting to see what the scenes were. We had to collect the most perishable items of evidence first, which was fleeting because blood will wash away, and it started to pick up and rain.
So we had exigent circumstances on the stuff that we had to pick up. And one of the things that we didn't mention earlier is the SWAT team had to be called out to get this person out of his house. They tried to bullhorn, tried a bunch of other things, beating on his door, beating on the side of the building, all that, and he wouldn't come out. He was acting like he was asleep. And finally, SWAT, with the tactics that they used, he decided it was in his best interest to come out of the building. So we're up to the point now where we've done all the SWAT stuff, we've got him out, and you guys are starting to do the documentation.
Correct.
So now we're back out. We have a big scenes, plural. We have witnesses. We still have citizens that are part of that apartment complex that want to get in. They don't have places to go. They're sitting in cars. They're outside. They're underneath awnings and all sorts of stuff. One of the things that was going on at that time, not only do we have the gentleman that was in the wheelchair that was on the phone with her, we had to make arrangements to get him down to homicide.
Yes.
We also had somebody over at a restaurant that was next door to the scene. We had a very good witness there.
Yes,
Tell me
yes.
about that.
This apartment complex is located right next to the little laundromat. I don't remember the name of the laundromat, right there at 12th and Burkett, just a little bit west. Is it Burton's?
Yes.
The guy that we talked to, his fiance worked at the laundromat. So he spent a lot of time there on his car. He'd sit on the curb and smoke and talk to people. And that way he was kind of with her, but not. And the guy was very, very on it. He watched things for days, how things worked and patterns. And he noted that this guy, our suspect, Mr. Wilson, every day would ride his bike to the cafe next door and get his food and then ride back. This particular day, he thought it odd that this Mr. Wilson walked over and got his stuff. And then he watched him walk back. Instead of walking, he said he walked back in between the apartments. He was carrying two styrofoam trays of food. He said he disappeared in between the buildings, which he wouldn't have been able to see him enter his own apartment from there. But he could see Mrs. Nugent's apartment door. The guy reappears without the bags, and he doesn't knock, doesn't anything, just opens the front door to Mrs. Nugent's like, he belongs there. Then he walks in, and the guy said, I thought that odd as well. He's in there for 2 or 3 minutes. The guy comes out, heads back and disappears. He's assuming he went back to his apartment. A few minutes later, he walks back out in front of Miss Nugent's place, and he said he's like very apprehensive whether to go back in there or not. But he goes back in, and he's in there for another couple of minutes, and then the guy comes out carrying a broken coffee table or end table. It's a pretty big end table if it was an end table. He had the legs under one arm, and he had the top of it on another arm. And he walks right out the dumpster, pitched in the dumpster. And I think the bulk of it got in the dumpster. I think maybe a leg or a piece of something fell outside the dumpster. But the guy that was watching this, it was interesting because he had such a keen eye for detail. He said, I've seen that guy so many times. He said, I can tell you, it's either on his calf or on the back of his arm. He's got a big rebel flag tattoo. He said, I see it all the time. He said, no, that's the guy. And sure enough, he had that big rebel flag on him. So pretty good eyewitness.
Well, this whole thing, wasn't it over this guy? I don't even mention his name, and I sure as hell don't call him Mister, but this guy was well known for playing his music extremely loud. He was just obnoxious. And Mrs. Nugent went over to his house and banged on the door and asked him to turn his music down. And apparently, the whole world revolves around his belly button, and that's what set him off. In fact, he slammed the door in her face and then had a period of time, few minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, to get his courage up, to get more and more pissed off. And then he went over to Mrs. Nugent's house, and that's when she said, oh, my God, because he was coming through the door, and he proceeded to begin the process of killing her.
Right. And the gentleman that was on the phone with her when she said, oh, my God, and dropped the phone, he had stated that she had, that's why he called police, she had an issue with another tenant in the building earlier because of the music being loud. So it just kind of led right into everything.
Didn't he make a second trip and come out with a milk crate or something? We had some paperwork in it.
Yes, he did. The second trip in, I think the first time he came in and came out, he had the coffee table and legs. Then when he went back in, he was carrying what they described as a plastic milk crate, and it looked like it had paperwork in it. And then he disappeared towards his apartment.
Well, here's what's even more callous, from what we described. You haven't got the full detail yet, but he actually smashed this coffee table, picked up a leg, and beat this helpless lady. Just beat her like hitting on a log or something. I mean, just absolutely destroyed her. She had no chance for defense. She couldn't have done anything. I wish she'd had a gun, but she didn't.
And that was a real wood coffee table.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
And he had an opportunity, even after he committed this atrocious act to her, to go back and think about it and go, you know what, I screwed up. I should go back and try and help her. I should call an ambulance. I should call the police. I should do something. Instead, his thought process was, I wonder how much more stuff she has. So now he goes back to the house and takes more items.
Yes.
I mean, talk about not caring. And, people hear these stories and they go, oh, no, there's no way. Yeah, there's a way. It happens. It happens.
Yep.
And then after that whole process, what did he do? He had a Big Al cheeseburger and fries, and he was so famished from beating this woman to death that he had to nourish himself. He had to sit down to that meal so he got all the nourishment he could so he could continue on with great things in life. That's what kind of garbage that we deal with every single freaking day. That's what we see. That's what we do. That's what happens. Go ahead, Cookie. What else happened?
Just the guy was he was so narcissistic when we finally got him to homicide that he was just thought that, he was going to fool the world. But that didn't work out too well for him.
Yeah, if I recall right, he tried spinning a story to us about how he just goes to work and he rides his bike and he's a good guy and he's never been in her house.
Yeah.
Oops, little mistake there. Now comes the search warrant part for Mr. Nugent's house, and I think there was some clothing found with
Yeah,
blood
some
spatter on it.
Yep.
Yes, there was. Upon us executing a search warrant, we went through his apartment. He was a doomsday prepper. He had amounts of water, propane tanks, canned meat all stacked up in one area. He was the place was surgically clean. We noticed a pair of jeans that were out of place in a laundry hamper with a towel thrown over them. And as I recall, these clothes were clean, and that particular pair of pants was dirty. And upon looking at it, we found spots of red stains that eventually was sent in for DNA, and it came back that it was Mrs. Nugent's DNA in her blood were on his pants in that laundry hamper, and also his wearer DNA listed him as being the owner of those jeans, the person who was wearing those jeans.
That's the same guy said he's never been in her apartment.
Yes.
So on top of being a killer, he's a liar
And
and a coward.
Yep.
getting back to Miss Nugent's apartment, there was a tremendous amount of violence. It was centrally located right into the living room as you walked in. There was a large spot of red staining blood, tested positive for blood. Imprints where a coffee table used to be. Behind the couch on the west wall, there was parts of a broken coffee table. Behind the couch, in the entryway from the living room into the kitchen, was a cordless handset from a cordless phone. The back was off of it, lying several feet away, with a battery pack hanging out of it.
That would be what she dropped when she said, "Oh my God."
Yes, and we believe that she was in her chair when he comes through the door when the attack occurred. Her hearing aids were in opposite ends of the living room. There was a standing lamp that was tipped over. High impact blood spatter was all over the walls to the hallway, to the kitchen, where she was sitting in her easy chair, on the TV table, and on and underneath a bookshelf that was along the east wall. So there was a lot of impact. So it was high velocity for it to get up underneath a standing shelf and strike the wall.
How big was that room? You remember approximately?
Not very big. It was,
10 by 12, 12 by 12?
I would say,
12 by 12,
12 by
15,
12.
something like that.
yes.
Not very big. These techs, they're incredible at what they do. These guys go to every school you can imagine to read that blood spatter, the direction it goes, directionality, where it comes from, how it falls, how quick it dries. And we talked earlier about, we had 3 scenes. Kenny, it's not unusual to go to a scene and have scenes within the scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, you have a big scene, but then you have shell casings over here, makes that a scene. You have a car over here. You have an outbuilding out here. So you could have several scenes that you guys all have to do.
Yes.
And it's, like you said, you're fighting the elements. It's raining. You got important stuff that you got to get before it goes away. So,
Well, there has to be proper documentation. We have to be able to testify that in court. We have to hold crowds back. We have to make sure animals aren't tracking through. And of course, with the weather like you're talking about, that was a situation. I don't want to say throw and go, but it was good documentation quickly. Everybody joined in. And still, you had you had to kind of filter through what did SWAT do, what damage did they do or didn't do, how important is that to the case, and I think we held on to that scene for 2 or 3 days, didn't we?
We did. It was finally returned, I believe, on September the 2nd. We called the board up crew. The first night that we were there, we managed to get our documentation done, and it was like 4:30 in the morning. So we called it. We left Mishawaka officer on scene security till we could get back out there to finish processing the scene. It was that big. So we did what we could do. And then the next day we came back and hit it hard again and did a very thorough job. So we went through 3 scenes within a day and a half. And of course, Miss Nugent had not passed and she was still on life support at the hospital.
And then you remember who handled the autopsy?
Yes, it would be forensic pathologist Dr. Joseph Prallo, and I believe it was Detective Slater, Kyle Slater, and possibly somebody else. I know the next day, my partner in the unit, Michael Norby, Detective Norby, came out and we processed Joann Nugent's apartment, and Kyle and Jim Andrews came and processed the suspect's apartment.
In that suspect's apartment, we found a gun.
Yes, there was a pump shotgun, and him being a convicted felon, he was not supposed to have a firearm, along with there was ammunition there as well.
Okay, and we hit him with gun enhancement.
Yes.
And he got hit with murder.
Yes.
Remember how long that was after her death that he got tagged with the murder? Because I know we had a concern that perhaps he would run in there real quick and plead guilty, and she hadn't passed yet. So it would have been a completely different charge. It could have been upgraded, I'm sure, but that was one of the concerns. And not that anybody's hoping, geez, we were just hoping that he didn't figure that out. But one thing about this guy, if you remember, at the St. Joe County Jail, there was a cell, like it was a corner. There was a cell here and a cell here. And this guy just happened to start talking to a inmate right next to him. That inmate, and I can't say this enough, police officers, listen to this. Get informants, get cooperators, get confidential informants, whatever you want to. People want to tell stories. They want to tell. Build that group up. I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. He started talking to one of my guys. My guy got on the phone with me, said, man, come down here and pick me up. So I can't go down to the county jail most of the time because too many people know me. So I would send somebody else because as soon as I hit the door, man, Corbett's here and, everything's ringing up. So I just stayed away as much as I could unless I wanted to put a knot in somebody's lower extremities, then I would show up. But went down, got him, brought him down, and he started telling the story. It was like, here's the script, read it back to me, go out to the scene, look at it. It was unbelievable. This guy couldn't shut his cake hole. He couldn't stop talking. He couldn't stop bragging. He was proud of the fact that he killed an elderly lady with a freaking table leg and talked about it. And then he went on to tell him he was going to cut his hair and his beard so he looked more presentable. And, the cops are a bunch of dumbasses and we're never going to figure it out. Well, I'm going to a place tonight to eat dinner. He's going to a chow hall to be with a bunch of dudes. So I guess he really is the smartest one.
If I recall, the guy that he talked to had some information that only we would have known. It wasn't something that somebody else could have guessed, or it was something very...
Well, he even told us, if I remember correctly, what he bought to eat. Yes. And what was found, what we were going to find in the microwave. He had a Big Al cheeseburger, don't ask me why I remember that, and fries. And if I remember correctly, he ate the fries and left the burger in the microwave.
That's correct.
And what'd they find? A burger in the microwave. What'd the cooperator tell us? This is what he ate. He went next door. He bought the stuff, took it back home, ate the fries, left the burger in the microwave. Bingo. How are you going to know that? You can't even make that up on your best freaking day. You cannot make that up.
That's
And he wanted to keep talking. It wasn't just a one-time event. It was a continuous process. Every time they saw each other, because their doors faced each other, they were yapping. What do you know about homicides? What can I say? What are you supposed to do? How can I get out of this? What's a good? And of course, if the person you're asking is wearing the same jumpsuit you're wearing, so if they were so smart, they wouldn't be sitting there. But apparently, this guy thought my friend was smarter than him, and probably a bag of hammers was too. But he helped us. That's for sure. Ken, anything important? Well, it was all important, but anything special that you remember about evidence that really stood out to you? The blood spatter, obviously.
The phone. I believe he grabbed her phone. She was sitting in that chair, and that phone is several feet away from where she would have been sitting. She was found right on the floor in front of her easy chair. Makes me think he grabbed the phone and took it away from her and then threw it, launched it, and it went dead. Because the information we had from the witnesses,
and while
they
he's
hear, "Oh my
beating her in
God,"
the head,
and yes,
her hearing aids opposite corners of the room.
opposite corners of the room.
That's a
her-
pretty violent
her hearing
impact
aids.
to knock somebody's hearing aid
There
across
was a
the
lot
room.
of blood in the living room where the coffee table was.
Was there blood behind the couch, like it had arched? Wasn't there? I want to say there was some behind the couch.
We know that the door was partially open because there was red staining on the outside of the entry-exit door. I believe there was some, yes, as well on the south wall. We took many, many swabs of red staining from all different areas inside her living room.
Now a lot
And
of
what was-
that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What else was significant is her purse is on the floor right next to her chair. Looking inside her purse, her checkbook, her small brown wallet, everything was intact inside of her purse. So there was no robbery. Every other room inside of that small one-bedroom apartment, there was nothing disturbed. Well, actually, it was a two-bedroom apartment. But no other room showed any kinds of a struggle. It was all localized to the center.
Well, actually,
of
there
that
was a
living room.
robbery. It just wasn't items out of her
Well,
purse
yes.
because he took the table.
Yes.
That's property,
Correct, right.
and he also took the milk carton with whatever
Yeah,
was in there.
personal-
He
for
just didn't
personal
take it.
paperwork.
Apparently, he already had enough money to buy his Big Allen French fries. When somebody is hit with that much force, obviously, when they're struck, there's impact and blood flies. There's also blood that lands on the item that's hit. And when they bring it back, that blood cascades. Correct?
Right, it's called
Can.
cast off. It depends if the wound, she had injuries to the right side of her head, linear injuries, consistent with something that had an edge on it.
The
Has a
leg
square
had
table.
an edge
Yes,
on it, didn't it?
it was square on all four sides up towards the top, but it was a turned spindle down below where it touched the floor. It had several knobs on it, round knobs. So it originated a square piece of lumber that was actually turned down to be made a decorative table leg. But on the right side of her head, I recalled there was impact injuries that were linear, which would mean a line.
Was there any number that was given how many times she was struck? Do you recall that?
No, I do not. All I know is the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head and neck, and it was cranial cerebral hemorrhage that she had.
You're going to have to look all those words up. Those are big words.
So he basically
What it boils down to is she was beat to death about the head,
About the head and neck.
upper upper body, shoulders up. You know, he could have hit her in the legs. He could have hit her in the arm. He could have not done anything at all, but at least give her an opportunity to live. And he chose what the penalty was going to be, and it was death. Yeah. Cookie, you remember anything else about who all we interviewed? We had the gentleman that was in a wheelchair that was on the phone. The guy over at the diner.
We also had another gentleman that lived in the apartment complex. And you said earlier, we have to control the scene. He was someone that could be controlled. So I think we had to wait a day or two to talk to him because he ended up in jail himself that night for interfering, getting in the way.
Yeah.
But he kind of gave us a history of, and apparently she'd asked him a couple times in the past, hey, can you keep your music down? Not mean about it. Didn't go to management, didn't do anything, knocked on the door, and said, hey, can you keep that down? I'm sleeping or trying to watch TV, whatever. And just no need for it. Senseless. Absolutely senseless.
He got 71 years, right?
Yes.
With the firearm enhancement.
He'll be busy for a while.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most horrific scenes. We've had bloodier scenes, but certainly one of the most horrific because you just saw everybody's grandma laying there. That's what it looked like. Everybody's grandma, completely helpless. Police first get there. She's fighting for her life. She's trying to breathe. The one officer had to tell her, just stay down because, her impulse was to try and move and get up, but way too severe. And nothing was done to help her by the bad guy, by the cops. Matter of fact, I can remember when we were out there and they finally drug him out. All the people that were living there and everybody that stopped by, I don't know if you guys remember this, were actually applauding and yelling, positive things for the cops. Positive things. Good things. They liked the cops. The cops did what they were supposed to. Nobody tore anything up. Nobody was yelling at the cops. They were trying to give us water. They were trying to do everything to help us out. Coming up, shaking hands, patting cops on the back. There's not enough of that goes on. You see all the other stuff, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But, that's, anyway. What, you got anything finally you want to say, or final words rather?
It's our team is just such a strong bond. Jimmy Andrews goes down in the dumpster and Kenny comes out and fills the spot. And he's got to know right where Andrews stopped, and he just picks up and runs. And Andrews rejuvenates, gets whatever fixed. He's back out on the job again tomorrow.
Hey, well, you know what? We can't leave this as a mystery. Jim Andrews, a boy's a piece of work. Love him to death. He was getting into the dumpster to try and recover evidence. Well, apparently somebody told him it was the cliff diving championship for the Olympics or something.
Was raining, that steel was
and I don't know what he tried to do, a 2.5 gainer with 3 twists and a degree of difficulty of 4.6. And all he saw was Russian judge 4.7, American judge 8. And, as usual, it happens to anybody. You're not going to say, gosh, I slipped into this pile of debris. I hope I'm okay. It was more like, what the just happened? And, cops being cops, the first, you okay? Yeah. And when you found out he was okay, then you start laughing at him. Go get your dumb ass out of that dumpster. So we had to help him out, and we're laughing at him. He's kind of laughing at himself. And of course his back was tore up for a while. So I don't think.
Dumpster nast all over.
Oh yeah. He's got big Al ketchup on him, and pickles in his ears or whatever. But he did not make Dancing with the Stars that season.
And you got to imagine this guy's about 6'6", probably 235, 240 pounds. A big
a lot
boy.
Of weight.
Yeah.
Big boy. Good policeman,
Yeah.
man. He was my partner.
Great.
Just a good man.
Yeah. Well, anyway, somebody had a shot at Dancing with the Stars that he didn't, so I hope they got the trophy. Kenny, what do you want to say?
Again, just trying to wrap your head around this crime. It's really a senseless act of violence. An elderly female. What kind of man are you that you would go and attack somebody because they asked you to turn down your music? How do you like to be next to that guy at a traffic light after you accidentally cut him off? He gets out of the car with a ball bat and, will come after you, or a gun and shoot you.
We'll bring
So
him
I'm
back
just-
to a gunfight.
Yeah, I'm just happy that we managed to get him off the street and signed, sealed, and delivered. He belongs to the Department of Corrections. So that's it.
Well, I think these guys pretty much wrapped it up. The thing I'm going to reiterate, and I'm going to keep pounding it at every one of these podcasts. Cops care. Don't listen to this lying ass news media that tells you different. They talk about systemic racism. They talk about all these things, but they never show you any proof. We don't pick our suspects. We don't pick our victims. We just go out and mop up the mess. And we have to take the abuse, and we knew what it was when we signed up. We know that. We know we could go out on our very first day, be killed, and there's going to be people that care, and there's going to be people that don't care. But if you listen to the stuff that's going on, it's politicians trying to create the havoc and the stress between people. They love it. It keeps them in business. They love it. Search for yourself, understand for yourself, check for yourself, talk to cops, find out they're human. We eat, we go to the bathroom, we sleep, we do all sorts of stuff. We really do. We're not robots. We do care. We wouldn't be doing this podcast and explaining to you the things that we see and hope it never happens to you and you never have to see it. We want to help. We want to do the right thing. Yes, there are bad cops. Yes, there are bad doctors, attorneys, nurses, bus drivers, janitors, you, teachers. There are bad. Good cops, don't want them. Get rid of them. But not all cops are like that. And when you say all cops are systemic, you're lumping me into something that I'm not a part of. And what you're doing to us, you wouldn't want us to do to you. So have the courage when you hear that to stand up and not be part of the millennial crowd where you got a trophy for everything and your feelings got hurt very easily and you couldn't play dodgeball because if you got hit with a ball, God forbid, you wouldn't be able to survive. Come on out. Sign up to be a policeman. There's plenty of openings. They'll take you. Guess what, though? You're going to have to pass a test, a written one. You don't get special privileges. You'll have to pass a physical. You don't get special privileges. You'll have to go to class. You don't get special privileges. You have to pass everything, and you don't get trophies, cocoa butter on your ass, or a pat on the back. It's a tough, ugly job. If you want to do it, man up or shut up. It's just that simple. There's departments would hire in a heartbeat. Jump up off the couch, put down your cappuccino with the foam on it, and get out there and do something. You getting up or you whining? Come on out, help us stop this kind of stuff. These new things that they're coming up with, no bonding, and it's ridiculous. Take a look around. South Bend, Indiana, 42 homicides last year, 133 shootings. But for you being a terrible shot and me being a great doctor, that could be 80 or 90 homicides. The only reason these people aren't dying is because they're not getting hit in the right spot. Thank God we have a level 1 trauma center. But when you hear all groups, how is it? All gangs are groups, but all groups aren't gangs. What is that? These are the play on words. Listen, everybody gets a seat at the table. So you're going to invite gangbangers to sit at the table with us and talk about how you want to defund the police department, how you want a citizens review board. A citizens review board, are you kidding me? When a doctor screws up, they don't call Tim Corbett in and go, what do you think about the way he opened up that cranial vault? Do you feel comfortable with the pituitary gland that was removed? What the hell do I know about that? What the hell do you really know about police department other than what you see on NCIS or whatever that show is? So to have that, all you're doing is placating to people to give them what they want. You're not helping anything. You're hurting. You're hurting. Don't fall for what these politicians say. Charles Barkley the other night was 9 miles all over those guys. He said the exact same thing, that the politicians are the ones that are doing the divide. They love the divide. They love that people are at each other's necks and throats and causing problems and headaches and fights and all sorts of stuff. They love it because now they can come back and go, hey, guess what? We have a new bunch of money coming in, and here's $5,000 for this, and here's $10,000 for this, and here's money at this, and You know what it is? It's hush money. It's to keep you to shut up. Think for yourselves. Don't follow these politicians. I took an oath to that badge, and I know I'm up on a soapbox right now, but I took an oath to that badge. Not some piss on his self politician that roll on his back like a puppy. Are you kidding me? Up in Minnesota, you're gonna tell me that you give up a precinct? Here's a precinct. Go ahead and burn it down. Take it over. What have you told everybody right then? We're giving up. What about that evidence that was in that building on a rape for your kid, a molesting for that kid, a murder for that kid? That evidence is destroyed. It's gone. Now you can't use it because some politician wanted to cave in and not stand up. I can tell you right now, if I was chief of police, it'd be okay, Mayor Sissy or whoever it is. I'd go right back down to that police department and say, get your sticks and your helmets. We're cleaning this up. We're not going to have a town taken over as hostage. Hell, if the mafia did that and was charging for it, they call it a RICO Act. What do they call it now? Angry people. Angry people. Okay. Well, join up. Come on out and fight it. Thanks.
Veterans.
Oh, I screwed up. Thank you to all the first responders, all veterans, and all service people now that are out there. We don't get to do what we do. We don't get to have this podcast and get it out and tell the truth, the real truth, not the happy ending news spin on it so everybody can feel good about themselves and you don't get the real truth. That's what we're about. That's why we're telling these stories. We want you to know just how ugly it is, and you're hearing it from us that have done it, have seen it, and we're out there protecting you and still are. So thank you to all you folks. You make my life and my job better. Thanks.